Okay, buckle up, Buttercup. You're about to hear the tale of how I almost turned into a chew toy for a pack of fluffy little demons. And no, I'm not talking about toddlers. I'm talking about Shih Tzus. Yes, those teddy bear-looking pups with the perpetual underbite. Don't let the cuteness fool you. They're tiny, furry, four-legged agents of chaos. It all started innocently enough. My Aunt Mildred, bless her cotton socks and questionable life choices, passed away. And along with her collection of porcelain dolls that stared a little too intensely, and a lifetime supply of prune juice, she left me something truly terrifying. Her Shih Tzu, Princess Fluffybutt the Third. She's a sweetheart, dear, the lawyer had croaked, handing me the leash attached to a ball of white fur that looked like it had just escaped a cotton candy factory. Just follow the rules. Rules? I asked, already feeling a dread colder than a penguin's pedicure settling in my stomach. He shuffled some papers and cleared his throat. Mildred was particular. She left a detailed list. Follow them to the letter. It's for the best. Trust me. He then practically sprinted out of the room. The list was indeed particular. It was typed on onion skin paper, stained with what I hoped was tea, and looked like it had been written by a mad scientist. Here's the gist. Rule number 1. Never, ever feed Princess Fluffybutt the Third anything after midnight. Not even a nibble. She's on a strict dental plan. Yeah, right, I thought. What's the worst that could happen? Gingivitis? Rule number 2. Keep her away from water. Rain, puddles, even a rogue sprinkler. She shrinks in water like a cheap wool sweater. This sounded just plain weird. Rule number 3. This is the most important. Always keep a copy of Shih Tzus and Existential Dread by her side. She hates loneliness and existential dread. I swear, this wasn't just in the list, like it was highlighted then circled, then also had a star next to it. A book that cures loneliness? Right. I snorted. My skepticism alarm was blaring harder than a fire truck at a clown convention. I rolled my eyes. All right, Mildred, I muttered. I'll play along with your crazy dog rules. Famous. Last words. The first few days were surprisingly normal. Princess Fluffybutt, I refused to call her by that ridiculous name, she was Poof from then on out, was actually kind of cute. She sat on my lap, grumbled softly, and shed enough fur to knit a small replica of myself. I even started to think Aunt Mildred's rules were just a quirky old lady's delusions. Then came the rain. It started as a drizzle, a gentle patter against the windows. Poof, who had been dozing on the couch, let out a high-pitched yelp and bolted under the coffee table. I figured she was just scared of thunder. I didn't think much of it until I saw her, shrinking, like a balloon slowly deflating. Her fluffy coat was clinging to her. Her tiny body was getting smaller, and her eyes were turning a disturbingly bright shade of yellow. Holy Shih Tzu, I exclaimed, grabbing a towel and desperately trying to dry her off. Okay, Mildred was right. This is getting stranger than a politician's tax returns. As I was furiously toweling Poof, I noticed the clock, 11:58 p.m. Uh-oh, I had been so focused on the miniature dog situation that I completely forgot the first rule. I quickly went and poured a small bowl of food for Poof, who was now back to normal size, but she eyed the food with an unnatural ferocity that made my hairs stand on end. Well, 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 what do we have here? A little snack for the pups, huh? She growled. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that she could talk too. I felt my jaw hit the floor. Did you just talk? Poof scoffed, nudging the food bowl, and then turned around, disappearing into the shadows of the kitchen. I rushed to the kitchen and flipped the light on. I saw her, and she was eating, and she was also multiplying. Like a furry, four-legged mitosis experiment gone horribly wrong. Soon, the kitchen table was swarming with tiny, yellow-eyed demon dogs, all slurping up the food like it was the Last Supper. Okay, this is officially worse than Aunt Mildred's collection of porcelain dolls that stared a little too intensely, I stammered. Abort! Abort! The Poof clones, their bellies full, turned their attention to me. More food. They barked in unison, their voices a chorus of miniature hellhounds. More food! We want existential dread! I remembered the last rule. Shih Tzus and existential dread. I scrambled for the book and frantically opened it to a random page and started reading aloud. The universe is a vast and uncaring void, and our existence is a fleeting speck of dust in the face of cosmic indifference. The clones seemed less than impressed. Boring, they barked. We want to know about free will. Are we just prisoners of fate? Is anything real? This was getting out of hand. Existential dread was a tasty treat. Okay, I've got nothing on free will. How about philosophy and consciousness? I began rapidly reciting every philosophical concept I could remember, trying to sound as boring as possible. It worked! As I droned on about the nature of reality and the meaning of life, the poof clones became noticeably less manic. Their yellow eyes started to dim, they yawned, and one by one they curled up on the kitchen floor and fell asleep. I tiptoed out of the kitchen, grabbed Poof, the original, who was still peacefully snoozing where the rain had reached her, and locked myself in the bathroom. The next morning, the kitchen was a mess of half-eaten dog food and tiny furry bodies. But as the sun rose, the Poof clones disappeared, vanished, as if they had never existed. I spent the rest of the day deep cleaning the house, triple-checking the locks, and buying a lifetime supply of Shih Tzu and Existential dread. I also invested in a hazmat suit from Amazon. I don't know what the future holds. So, yeah, that's the story of how I almost got eaten by a pack of demon Shih Tzus. Moral of the story? Always follow the crazy old lady's rules. And maybe invest in a good therapist. And a flamethrower. Just in case. You never know when existential dread will strike.